So you saw the final render in the short and you're thinking, how the heck did he make that icebreaking effect? Well, buckle up because in this tutorial, I'm showing you exactly how it was done, step by step. Whether you're brand new to Blender or just here to pick up some tricks, by the end of this video, you'll be able to pull off that same effect or maybe even level it up. Let's start by switching to the front viewport. Now delete the default cube. Here I am importing a pre-made can model using the BlenderKit add-on. But if you want, you can follow the same steps to create an ice layer around any other object as well. Now delete all these empty objects and box select all the cans along with their caps. Next, press G, then X, and move the cans aside. Move them along the X-axis. Now go to the material view and choose any can of your choice. Make sure to select the cap and the hook along with the can. Then duplicate the can, drag it over a little, and go to Edit mode. Hold Alt and select any of these bottom faces to select the entire loop. Now press Shift S and move the cursor to the selection. Once the cursor is placed at the bottom, go to Object mode, select all the parts of the can. Now left-click and set origin to the 3D cursor. Now press Shift S, move the cursor to the world origin. Select all the parts and again press Shift S and move the selection to the cursor, keeping the offset. Now press the tilde key and choose View Selected to quickly jump right on your object. Then press M and create a new collection. Rename it as Base Can. Select all the imported cans and move them to a new collection. Rename it as Imported Can. Trust me, if you don't want a headache later, it's smart to get everything organized now. Now to create an ice layer around the can, we need to create a simple or, let's say, minimalistic cover around the can. Now press Shift A, go to Mesh and add a circle. Scale it down. Then go to Edit mode, press EZ and extrude it along the Z-axis. To extrude the cover outwards, press ES and scale it outwards. Again, extrude it upwards. After extruding it till this point, place the extruded vertices. Again, press E and extrude it upwards, then press S and reduce the scale. For a clearer view, press Z and switch to X-ray view. Again, press E, extrude it upwards, and increase the scale. Now turn off the X-ray view and press F to fill the circle. Try to keep your mesh simple as possible. Once you complete the shape, grab the lower edges, move them downwards, and press F to fill the edge. Let's rename this cover as the ice layer. Press M and move this layer into the scene collection. Now to add some thickness to this cover, go to Modifiers, add a Solidify modifier, switch to X-ray mode and zoom in to see one side of the can, then increase the thickness of the cover. Once you get the desired thickness, increase the offset as needed and apply the modifier. Here, I don't want a very thick ice layer, but you can adjust it as per your need. Turn off X-ray view. Now, select the layer, press S10 to scale it 10 times, then press Ctrl A and apply the scale. If you are using a different model which has a scale 2 to 3 times bigger than the default cube, then you don't need to scale it 10 times. Here I have scaled my object as its original size was way smaller than the default cube, which makes the icebreaking complicated. Now press F3 or Fn plus F3 on Mac and search for cell fracture. But if you don't have the cell fracture add-on enabled, go to Edit Preferences and search for Cell Fracture Add-on. Enable the add-on. Another quick way to add the cell fracture add-on is just select Cover, then go to Objects, Quick Effect, and Cell Fracture. But wait, let's first save the project so that our progress is saved even if Blender crashes. Now again, search for the cell fracture add-on and set the point source limit to 0. Because here we are using a simple mesh. Setting this limit to 0 will not be a problem. But if your object has a dense geometry, set this limit to 100 or 200. Then set the recursion and source limit to 0 and set noise to 1. Now click OK and you will see multiple random cell fractures appearing. Just wait for a few minutes and the cell fracture will be completed. The time it takes for the cell fracture to finish may vary as per the specs of your computer, but if it takes too long for the fracture to finish, you might need to just quit the app, reopen it, and set a source limit of maybe 100 to 200. Okay, now once the test cell fracture is completed, undo the action by pressing Ctrl Z, and again add cell fracture to the ice layer. This time we're going to set the recursive shattering to 1, source limit to 8, and clamp recursion to 500. For those who don't know anything about cell fracture, don't worry. Soon, I'll be releasing an in-depth video where you'll learn all about the different settings, how it works, and how to use it effectively in your Blender projects. For now, just copy the same settings. Now here choose Big. This will let us break larger chunks into smaller pieces. Then keep the point source limit to 0, set noise to 1, and choose Own Verts. Here, name the collection as Fractures, and click OK. After the cell fracture is completed, hide the ice layer. Now take a proper look at the fractures. If you see some fractures outside of the layer, move them aside or delete them. Move the fractures collection into Scene Collections. Click on the collection and click on Select Objects. This will select all the objects from that collection. Now press R, then Z, and rotate all the objects along Z axis. We need to make sure no gap or missing part is visible from the front. Now from the base group, select all the parts and also scale them 10 times. Now let's move on to create an ice material. Select any of these pieces, add a material, and rename it as ice material. Now in the world properties, change the color to white. Next, go to the Shading tab, and in the Shader workspace, press Shift-A, add a bump node, then add a noise texture, connect the bump normal to normal of principal BSDF, then connect the factor of the noise texture to bump height. Now add a color ramp. Connect noise factor to color ramp factor and the color of the color ramp to roughness of principal BSDF. Finally, now to see the changes, change the render engine to cycle, set device to GPU, and change viewport max samples to 100. Make sure to enable denoise. Now let's link the material to all the objects. Duplicate the active cell, move it aside for a clear view. Now select the fractures collection, left-click on the collection and choose Select Object. Once all the objects are highlighted, select this duplicate cell and press Ctrl-L and choose Link Materials. Now, if you want to make the ice look more clear, first in the Principal BSDF, change the transmission weight to 1. Next, move the dark handle of the color ramp towards the center. Then to add some extra detail, let's change the roughness and the bump value. This will give a more realistic look to the ice. Switch to Render View to view the ice effect. Okay, here change the IOR value to 1.3, which is close to the actual IOR value of ice. Just try not to make it look like clear glass. If you want, you can rotate the base can along the z-axis as needed. Now, to create a 3-layer ice-breaking effect, first hide the base can collection. Now, we need to first divide this can into 3 imaginary sections. Then, you can select the pieces from the first section and the third section. This way, you can get an idea of how big the middle section is actually going to be. While the first and the third section are selected, press M and move them into a new collection. You can rename this collection as Blast 1 and 3. Now, hide this collection, select all the remaining fractures and move them into a new collection. Rename it as Blast 2. Then, make sure there are no fractures in the fracture collection. Here, we're going to delete this duplicate fracture and also the fractures collection. Now, select all the fractures of Blast 1 and 3 collection, hide Blast 2 collection. Now, select all the fractures from this upper section and move them into a new collection. Rename it as Last 1. Next, rename the Last 1 and 3 collection as Blast 3. Now, unhide the Blast 2 collection and arrange all the collections. Now, go to Scene Properties, then Rigid Body World, and add a new Rigid Body World. Here, in the collections, select Blast 1 collection. Next, scroll down here in the field weights. We're going to set the gravity to 0. Now, select all the objects of Blast 1 collection. Hold Shift and select an active object. Set Origin to Geometry and move Cursor to Selection. Now press Shift-A and add a force field. In the Physics property, change the force field strength to 10,000. Now, move your playhead to frame 30 or maybe 60. Set Start Frame to 60. In Scene Properties, click on Cache. Set the start frame as 60 and end frame as 80. Then delete all bake and bake the animation. Now, if you feel the blast is very quick, you can just reduce the strength of the force field and again bake the animation. Once you get the right animation, select all the objects from Blast 1 collection, deselect force field, then press F3 or FN plus F3 on Mac and search for Bake to Keyframe. Change the starting and end frame and click OK. Now you can see all the fractures of Blast 1 are keyframes. If you want, you can delete the keyframes after 10 frames as their movement will not be recorded in the final render. Now let's repeat the same steps to animate Blast 2 collection. In the scene properties, while keeping all the settings the same, just change the collection to Blast 2 and bake the animation. But sometimes, even after changing the collection and baking the animation, you can't see the results. So you need to move the rigid body world and again add a new rigid body world. Now change gravity to 0, set starting to 60, and end framed to 80. Here, select the Blast 2 collection and bake the animation. Now you can see both the blasts happen at the same time. To solve this problem, we need to change the cache start frame and end frame. But first, delete the bake, remove Blast 2 from the collections, and again, play the animation. Now find the frame where all the Blast 1 fractures are no longer visible in the viewport. Or to keep it simple, you can just set the simulation start frame to 70 and the end frame to 90. I'm choosing frame 70 here because it's 10 frames after the previous blast, giving it a clean gap. Then here, choose Blast 2 collection. Now select all fractures of Blast 2 collection, hold Shift and select an active object, set geometry to origin, then press Shift S and move cursor to selection. Now select the force field, press Shift S and move selection to cursor. After baking, select all Blast 2 fracture. Press F3 or Fn plus F3, search for Bake to Keyframe, set Start Frame to 69, End Frame to 80, and click OK. To save some time, I'm going to fast forward the baking of Blast 3, but if you'd like to watch this part in detail, feel free to slow the video down to 0.25x speed. Now, I've just finished baking and keyframing the entire animation. I hope you've successfully completed yours as well. After keyframing the fractures, we can see all the fractures are moved into the scene collection. Now, quickly move all fractures back to their original collection. Move the playhead to frame 80, go to top viewport and select all these fractures. Deselect the force field and move the fractures into Blast 3 collection. Now hide the collection, move playhead to frame 70 again, go to top viewport, select these fractures, unselect the force field, press M, and move them into Blast 2 collection. Hide the Blast 2 collection, move play to frame 60, and repeat the same steps. After animating the third blast, let's do the final step now. Turn on the viewport visibility of the ice layer. Now, if we switch to the solid view, we can see overlapping between the ice layer and the blast pieces. Now, if we switch to render view, we can see there is no material for the ice cover. So, okay, let's hide the ice cover and also turn on the viewport visibility of base cans. Now, go to Material Properties and link the ice material to the ice layer. Now, if you watch this animation properly, you will see that at the start there is a complete unshuttered ice layer around the can. To create a similar effect, we need to hide the render visibility of the blast pieces for the first 30 frames. But if we start keyframing the render visibility of each piece manually, it will require a lot of time. So to quickly keyframe the render visibility of all the pieces, we're going to use this Python script. You can copy the same script from the description. Now go to scripting, click on new text, and paste this script. Here, change the frame number to hide the render visibility. If the animation of the Blast 1 fractures starts from frame 60, you need to hide the render visibility one frame before the animation starts. Here, because our animation of the Blast 1 object starts at frame 60, we are going to hide the render visibility at frame 59. So here, change the frame number to 59. Next, select Blast 1, 2, and 3 collection. Then select all the objects and run the script. Now copy and paste this script to unhide the render visibility. Set the frame number 60 to start the render visibility. Then select Blast 1, 2, and 3 collection. Then left-click and select All Objects. Now run the script. Once that is done, select the ice layer here, change the start frame to 1. Now move playhead to frame 1. Next turn on the render visibility of ice layer and press I to keyframe the render visibility. Now move playhead to frame 60, hide the render visibility and press I to keyframe it. If you want, you can also keyframe the render visibility of ice cover at frame 59. Move the playhead to the frame where the animation of the Blast 3 ends. Then move the cursor to the world origin. Now select the other two can models and move the selection to the cursor while keeping the offset. Next, scale these cans 10 times. Now go to the top viewport, select all the parts of this can, then press Ctrl J and join them. Next, select all the parts of this can again, press Ctrl J and join them. Next move, play to frame 160. Now select both the cans, left-click and set origin to geometry. Next, select the can, press N on the keyboard to open the transform panel. Next, move pointer over location and left-click to insert a keyframe. Repeat the same with the other can. Now move playhead to frame 90. Then go to top viewport, select the can, press G and place this can behind the red can. Now move the cursor to the selection, select the other can, and move it to the cursor. Now on frame 90, keyframe the location of both of these cans. Now if we move the playhead forward, we can see both the cans moving forward. Next move, playhead to frame 1660 and keyframe the scale of both of these cans. Then again, move playhead to frame 90, slightly reduce the scale of both the cans and keyframe it. Now it's time to set the background. Move the cursor to the world origin. Now press Shift A and add a plane, then scale the plane. Next, go to Edit mode, select these three edges of the plane and extrude them upward along the Z-axis. Press E, then Z and move them upward. Go to Object mode, then switch to Material Preview and add a new material. Select the base color and change the value to 0. Now go to World Properties, select Color, and change the value to 1. Now select the box, go to Material Properties, and set the metallic value to 0.5 and the roughness to 0.1. Now you can see the slight reflection of the can on the surface. Now press Shift A, go to Light and add Area Light. Select the light, press G, then D, and move the light upwards. Next, press the tilde key and switch to Front Viewport. Being in the front viewport is very important while adding a camera. Now press Shift A and add a camera. Next, grab the camera and move it backwards along the Y-axis. Also, move it a little upwards along the Z-axis. After placing the camera, delete the previous scene camera. Select this new camera, left-click, and choose Set as Active. Now, while being in the camera view, we're going to use the transformation panel to adjust the camera position. Now, select this area light, then go to Object Data Property and increase the intensity of light to 1000 watts. After increasing the intensity of light, move the pointer to the upper right corner of the 3D viewport. And once you see the pointer turn into a cross, left-click and drag inwards. This will create a new extra workspace. In this new workspace, switch to Render Preview and turn on Camera View. While being in the camera view, zoom out a little bit to see the full camera view. This will help us understand which part is going to be visible and which part is going to stay hidden. Now grab this light and move it upward along the Z-axis. Make sure the reflection of the light is not visible in the background or in the camera view. Now if you feel the light is too bright, just reduce the intensity of the light by selecting the light and decreasing the power in the Object Data property. After reducing the power, add another area light. Rotate the light 90 degrees along the X-axis, move it backward along the Y-axis, then move it upwards along the Z-axis. Now select this light, then in the transformation panel, rotate the light along the X-axis, then press the period key on the keyboard and select 3D cursor. This will change the pivot point to the 3D cursor. Now select the light, then press R and rotate it along the Z-axis. Next, change the intensity of the light to 500. Now increase the scale of the light. This will not only increase its size, but also move it further away from the center. Now make sure the reflection of the light is not visible in the camera view. You can adjust the intensity of the light as per your project. Here, I will just rotate the light along the X-axis from the transformation panel. Once that's done, now press Shift D to duplicate the light, then press R, then Z, and rotate it 90 degrees along the Z-axis. Next, select the background cube, go to Edit mode, Select these three edges and press F to fill. Then select these four edges and move or extrude them along the y-axis. Press F again to fill the face. Now go to Object Mode, and while the cube is selected, go to the Object Data Properties. Next, go to Viewport Display and change Display As to Wire. Now here, because my light moved outside this cube while rotating, I will just increase the size of the cube. Now again, adjust the position and intensity of the light to hide the reflections in the background. Now, to increase lighting at the bottom, we are going to duplicate this light, move it downward along the z-axis, and rotate it to exit its focus. Once that's done, we are going to increase the size of the cube by selecting these faces and moving them along the x-axis. Then we are going to increase the scale of this light while keeping the pivot point to 3D cursor. Again, we're going to duplicate this light and rotate 90 degrees along the z-axis. Now select the cube, go to Edit Mode, and move this face along the x-axis. Render settings now. Change max render samples to 200. This is the render result that we get from those lighting. Here, you can adjust the rotation of the can, or you can just keep it as it is. Now let's do some final adjustments to render the entire animation. Now, while slowly moving the playhead at the end of Blast 3, we are going to find a frame where the fractures are not attached to the can, but are still visible in the camera view. On that frame, we are going to move the starting keyframe of both the cans and set the last keyframe on frame number 100. Once you're done keyframing, just render the animation, and you should see something pretty close to what I showed in the short. And that's it. I hope this tutorial helped you not just follow along, but understand the process. If you made it this far, you're already ahead of most. If you recreated the scene or added your own twist, I'd love to see it. Drop a comment or tag me if you post it. And if you've got ideas or questions, the comments are open. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more tutorials like this. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep blending.